Hi, my name is Peter Heine Nielsen. I'm a Danish grandmaster, and I'm part of what I would sort of call the post-Larsen generation in Danish chess. It's, I would say, me, Kurt Hansen, Lars Bo Hansen, Lars Schandorf, Suneberg Hansen, Henrik Danielsen, all sort of between 50 and 60 years old, who became grandmasters, and I would say was a very strong generation in Danish chess in the post-Larsen period. And well, Larsen was a huge influence for all of us, and I wanted to talk a bit about how did he influence us. I'm not talking about direct influence in the terms of him being a teacher. He would definitely try to help other Danish chess players at his peak, but here we are talking, well, quite some age gap between us. But what we really could benefit was that Larsen was an extremely energetic writer. I mean, many of you, of course, have read him in English, but he was writing really a lot in Danish, and it's clear that we benefited a lot from that. He would be a very energetic writer, as I said, but also a very honest one. What I personally would do is that in my sort of, well, I would say quite early childhood, I would go to the library in my sort of hometown, Holstebro. Quite funnily, this was also Bent Larsen's own hometown. He was born somewhere else, but he grew up in Holstebro, and he, even in his own memoirs, he said he would go to the same library and read chess books to study. But of course, I had this huge advantage that I could go there and read books written by Larsen, which obviously he couldn't do himself, right? But he was writing books, but he was also writing a lot of articles in something called Skakbladet, which means the Danish Chess Federation magazine. And I would go there and I would read old edition of that. Such things are quite particular, so they will not really be in the main part of the library. So despite being, very young, I might be in 5th or 6th grade, I would go down to sort of the basement of the library. We're talking about a huge room with no windows whatsoever, and there this young kid sits there and just reads chess magazines. But for me, it was such an amazing story. I mean, stories that I just couldn't get enough. Both the entertainment value and the chess wisdom was very strong. I mean, I remember, for instance, Larsen would give commentary to a lot of candidate matches. I was reading about the Karpov-Korchnoi candidate match, for instance, and he would just very honestly state what he thinks about the games. And this, I think, was great, right? I think Larsen was an incredibly confident person in general, and you could also see it in his writing style. He's not trying to hide or not to have secrets. He's just writing what he thinks and what he thinks is the essence of a chess position, and this was really great. So I would really do that a lot, and I think, this was my sort of first, real not interaction with Larsen, but reading him and trying to absorb a lot of knowledge. Of course, he also especially was doing books, and I was really influenced by a lot of them. The first one I recall is something called, Åbningsspillet in Skak in Danish, but in English, The Opening Game. It was a book where he basically was explaining all kind of chess openings and the ideas behind them and sort of some of the basics. And that was extremely useful for me. I basically made my life out of caring about chess openings. Of course, in the beginning I was a chess player, but I guess my somewhat claim to moderate fame is being first opening coach of Anand and now of Carlsen these days. So chess opening has always been especially interesting to me, even from early days, and I think a lot of the inspiration came from Larsen. And he made this very interesting book, and it's just a general explanation, but always with some kind of depth, despite being aimed at, I would say not beginners, but also not very advanced way. I mean, we're not talking about a book that goes into, long theoretical lines, but he's explaining basic concepts and interesting things. And, as weird as it is, based on two concepts from these books, I've managed to beat Hou Fan and Magnus Carlsen, perhaps the two highest rated players of both open category and the women's category, totally. Maybe Polgar was higher rated than Hou Fan, but let's sort of keep this to anecdotes and not facts, right? What I managed to do against Hou Fan, I will show on the board here. I'm not giving the exact position, but more or less the concept. I mean, Larsen was explaining that, let's say, in the Italian game, we will just put up a standard position, something like, let's say, this. And he was explaining that now, well, white should be very careful about doing the standard move h3 when we have a situation where you have castled and your opponent has not. I should do the colors differently, because now the king, while in principle being safely castled, and black's kings being not safely castled, is actually worse when you play this horrible move h3. Because then, because this is actually an attacking point. So I would play the great move, or Larsen would say, here, you play this great move h6, and next you're going to play g5, and you're going to open lines toward the king by playing you will play g4, you will play rook g8, and you're going to have a huge attack. I managed to beat Hu Yifan like that with black in a game in a tournament in Amsterdam. It was like youth against the veterans. I mean, quite some years back, but they still thought I was a veteran, and that was a really great result for me. And such kind of things, I don't think you would find in other books, because they would be more focused on direct theoretical lines, while Larsen was really trying to share wisdom. But I also teased that I did manage to use something from it against Magnus Carlsen. This is when Magnus was still very, very young. I mean, I was lucky enough to beat him there. This is from a tournament in Drammen. It must be more than 20 years ago, right? Magnus was really small there, maybe 12 or 13 years old. And at that point, we were the two strongest players in Scandinavia. I was still the higher rated. I played d4, he played d5, and the game continued like this. He played the Slav. So we go like this. Magnus took on c4. I played a4, bishop to f5. This was a common main line at some point, and this sort of line now was popularized by Morozevich at the time of this game. And there was a funny story that on the night before the game, Magnus was watching Morozevich playing Blitz online against his coach at the time, Simon Aktestein. I became Magnus' coach much later, but he was playing Blitz with him online, and in that game, in these games, it was a Blitz match, Morozevich would play this move, knight f to g4. And Magnus thought, okay, this is actually quite nice, so why don't I try this against Peter Heine tomorrow? But, and he did. He played it in the first round against me, and I was obviously surprised. But I was thinking for quite a while, but also somewhere, I guess, in the back of my mind, I thought I had seen this before. And I very much had, because this is covered in Larsen's book again. And he sort of, well, it's not like he's telling anecdotes in the book, but it's tidbits of interesting knowledge. And he said that, at some point knight fg4 was played here. And the idea is funny. So this also happened in this Aktestein Blitz games. If h3, it looks like you're winning a piece, right? You are attacking here. And, well, if the knight goes away, then this knight drops to a pin. But the whole point is you have this move, queen e7, quite nicely, right? And if you take on g4, well, then the game is over due to this kind of discovered checkmate. So h3 is not a good move. But what Larsen writes in the book is that, well, the refutation is the move f3. And it's the same point. You are attacking the knight on g4 and undermining the knight on e5. And the whole point is if queen e7, you can take here, and you have whack-headed the square on f2 for the king, so you're not checkmated. Magnus was very surprised. I mean, I think the story goes that later, actually, Aktestein had played f3 against Morozevich, but it was after Magnus's bedtime. I think that is definitely an anecdote, but a good one at least, right? So I played the move f3, and I think I forgot how the game went. Maybe I think like this. And the point is, if you go knight d3 check now, it looks extremely strong. Let's say something like castling here, king to d2, maybe knight f4, and you will threaten something like long castle, and the rook is going to attack the queen. But the point is, after knight d3 check, I was intending to play like this. And let's say here, I give a check, the king goes away, and I do long castle. And at the moment, I have two pieces, but this bishop on d3 is pinned, because if it goes away, let's say bishop g6, we have knight f5 check, discovered check with the rook here, winning the queen, and we end up material up. So I forgot what Magnus did exactly, but I actually managed to beat him quite easily, and it's nice to have beaten Magnus Carlsen, right? Even if you become his coach later and such. So Larsen was giving away tidbits like this, and it felt very inspiring. Me and others, we sort of started to think, okay, this is, I wouldn't say it is advanced chess knowledge, but also a lot of wisdom and very interesting things. It's not just learning things by heart, but it's actually trying to understand nuances, and that was great from his book. Another book I really loved was the book Zoom. It's a very strange book. He made it in a joint project with someone who tried to have this kind of very scientific attitude to an opening system. He would play Catalans with white, Grünfeld with black, so it was all about Financietto. But what I really like in the book is just that there is maybe 100 games commented by Larsen, by top players. And again, he's just giving his random thoughts here and there, and I thought this was just great. I'm going to absorb it a lot. It's a quite debated book. I know that Nigel Short thinks it's weird, and I know that Gelfand thought it was hugely inspirational, right? So, and Gelfand has been a master-level Catalan player all his life, so it really influenced him in a way. Another book that Larsen wrote that almost, we say, terrorized the Danish chess generation was a book called Solid Openings. It was a small yellow book, perhaps 50 pages, where he teaches people to play Caro-Kann with black, Old Indian with black, and the London system with white. We can see that I have pretty bad taste, because I ended up playing his black openings, the Caro-Kann and the Old Indian, which sort of not that popular anymore, like while the London, who was not popular then, but is extremely popular now, I was not really able to appreciate. But this book influenced a humongous amount of Danish amateur players, and especially one line in the Caro-Kann I remember Larsen being extremely happy about. So he wanted everybody to put here, he wanted them to take and play knight f6, and he said that, well, you should really take with the g-pawn. You turn on your engine nowadays, it will tell you, well, Larsen was wrong, and I will admit he was. But he was not wrong in a pedagogical sort of ways. It really worked wonders for amateur players, and even for myself. I mean, at some World Junior tournaments, I was usually against the best Russian players. I think I've had a draw against Tivyakov where I was slightly better playing like this and such. So, I mean, and I think what Larsen really manages in this small booklet is to describe how should black develop his pieces very efficiently. And I think maybe, he would say that, well, the whole concept is, I don't know, let me just make some, let's say, random moves like this, and I will be a bit helpful. So, I don't know, something like this. And he said that what he noticed especially was that when he would see otherwise rather, perhaps average Danish players, they would play this system actually quite well. And that was because he managed to explain the concepts. And I mean, I've played it actually against Peter Swittler in a Blitz tournament at some point, and gotten a very nice position. I think, for instance, let's say they go knight h4, you will play bishop to g6, and sometimes, let's say, even if they play the move f4, it looks great, right? You would play this move f5. And at first sight, people will think, isn't this bishop here completely blocked out on g6? It is, but the knight is coming to f6. We're going to have the e4 square. And, well, if you take the bishop, I'll take back with the h-pawn. If you leave it there, maybe I'll put it at h5 eventually when I have kicked away your knight from h4. And such things Larsen will explain in a way so that players much worse than Larsen actually was capable of understanding it. And I think this was a huge strength, that he would sort of help players advance their understanding, and this was really helped, of course, my sort of generation as part of the Danish elite, and I would say also a lot of amateur players. So, I mean, he really had this extremely strong mark on the generation following him, and of course, being able to walk in the footsteps of a giant is always a good idea. We saw that, I mean, if you come from Denmark, you could still become a strong player. Actually, it's well known that well, Norwegians and Danish, we are very similar in language. So Magnus Carlsen even has these advantages. And he said that his first chess book was also from Bent Larsen, a very nice collection of positional exercises. So, I mean, well, while us in Denmark became pretty good, of course, you could apparently also read Larsen and be the absolute best like Carlsen. So he really managed to make his mark on the upcoming generation.